Hey everybody, welcome back to Conquer the Cave. That's right, it's been a few weeks. Well, maybe a couple weeks. It's been a while anyway. There's been some traveling, there's been some busy stuff, but we are finally back. I'm Doa here along with Charmer as usual, and in case you're new to Conquer the Cave, what it is a King of the Hill style show where we basically pit two of the members of our Ice Cave Radio Discord against each other. So right off the bat, if you're not in the Ice Cave Radio Discord and you want to maybe participate in this, jump in. There's a sign-up sheet. We're going to get through everybody at some point, but the idea is who can conquer the cave, who can stay on top week to week. And so far, Charmer, no one's done 2 weeks in a row yet. We'll see if maybe Tbird, our reigning champion, can do that against LightsaberLarry, a prominent Discord member of the Ice Cave Radio Discord. And we'll see if maybe we get our first 2 week winner. Maybe we get another swap of who the conqueror of the cave is. You never know. What do you think?
I always have a hard time because it's like when somebody asks you, hey, what's your favorite child, right? If you're a parent and you have more than one kid, that's always like the barb, and you always say, oh, I love all my children equally. And it's kind of that with our Discord members because everybody's so awesome in there. So on the one hand, I would love to see Tbird repeat just because we haven't had it yet. Mm-hmm. It's kind of interesting that we talk about conquering the cave, but it's also been the quest to maintain your position within the cave. It feels like every time you start to set up shop, some new opponent comes in and ousts you out of the cave. So I'd like to see Tbird potentially repeat. However, LightsaberLarry, as you said, very prominent, very active, wonderful person. So I would also like to see them find success. I don't really know who I'm rooting for until I see the decks. I think at that point, I'm going to make a decision because there are clear favorites I have when it comes to decks.
I mean, we got to be objective commentators, though. We can't let any personal bias in it. It was more, do you think we're going to see a new champion than do you want to see a new champion?
No.
I feel go ahead.
I have decided for this that I get to be unobjective. I came to this revelation over the weekend when I was thinking about us casting these. Normally when you're on a broadcast, you're right, we have to be professional, we have to be objective. We highlight the good and the bad of both, we highlight the pros and cons of decks, etc. But because this is our community, I kind of am hoping to stoke some rivalries potentially. I'd like to see some storylines come through, so I am going to start playing favorites just because I can. It's my show.
Eventually, we're going to have like a team showdown, Team Charmer versus Team Doa. We'll see. We'll divide up our Discord members at some point and do that. But let's take a look at the deck list. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we do have Tbird returning once again with this Luke command list. You don't need to change lists week to week. You can if you want to. But if there's something you like, you're welcome to stick on it too. So this is the same list we saw last time, and it's a little bit of an updated Luke command list from what we saw in set 1. This is a great sort of mid-rangey, healing focus kind of list, but man, those shield tokens can be so annoying to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And even beyond the shield tokens, there's just a lot of inherent value here. This is a very what some would describe as a very mid-range list, meaning that you're trying to just play the most powerful thing you can on curve. Right out of the gate, we have space units that restore, ground units that restore and maybe draw cards, or just overstated units. Mm-hmm. And then as you go later in the game, you've got your mix of Sentinel on the air and the ground. You've got Ambush. You've got all sorts of things like removal on a body, like Luke Skywalker. So this is a list that can adapt its game plan. And as such, I think that it's going to be interesting to see what LightsaberLarry is bringing, because we want to see how Tbird has to adapt. Is he going to have to face off an onslaught or drag it into the late game?
Well, like you said, it's a very Swiss Army knife of a deck. You can play in a lot of different ways, generally in kind of mid-rangey way. Before we look at LightsaberLarry's, I want to point out the one thing that still kind of surprises me a little bit is the inclusion of Kuil in here. You see him be very good in like double vigilance lists, but in this deck, frankly, there's a lot of misses. You might run the risk if you play a turn 1 of Kuil to discarding something you could really use, like a modded cohort or a traitorous or something like that. So I don't know. We'll see. That does concern me a little bit, but it's a strong list either way. Let's take a look at our second list here. This is LightsaberLarry, who is bringing ECL Sabine this time, a hero and a leader that we are both very familiar with. But I want to get your take on his ECL Sabine list here. What do you think?
Well, this is the first time I'm seeing the list, but I already like the bones of it. There
Mm,
are some things that are similar to the one that I run. There are also some differences. Part of me wonders if they are based on just cards owned. Only one
for
Poe
sure.
Dameron
Yeah.
jumps out at me, right?
Yeah.
And
That is
that
the
is a very
case.
sought after
Yeah.
card. So things like that. But when I look at the list overall, I like that this is still a rebel heavy theme. I think that people who get away from the rebel theme are not getting enough value.
Mm,
There's a lot of really good stuff there with Rebel Assault, in my opinion, is one of the reasons to play Green Sabine to begin with. ECL is obviously really important, but Rebel Assault is very, very solid. And if you're going to stick with the Rebel theme, then General Dodonna is a great
mm.
inclusion. I love that that's still there. It messes with breakpoints a lot, can be very good in the mirrors, could be potentially very important when dealing with some of these shield tokens into this loot deck. The other thing that I just really like to see in a list like this is the combination of Bright Hope and Spec Force Soldier. That combo has won me so many games into vigilance based decks when I have played Green Sabine. And I love that LightsaberLarry is still including it because I have seen some people cutting one, if not both, of those cards from their lists.
Yeah, or at least you see the Spec Force Soldier go to the sideboard these days. But some people, like you said, are cutting it completely, which seems insane to me because you've got plenty of Sentinel out there to deal with. A lot of these lists still are running Bright Hope anyway. So I agree, man. I think it's a great combo. I like to have Spec Force Soldier main deck in my Sabine list too. A couple little notable differences here. We do have some Heroic Resolve. You do see that in a couple Sabine lists, but I feel like it's one of the less common cards in there. And then I do think the 1 Poe, the 2 Wrecker is kind of reflective of the card pool that Larry had access to. But I like the inclusion of the Dodonna, and the Valiant Assault Ship is sort of like the filler for that, because if you're going to have to fill those spots, if you don't have access to those cards, I think both of those choices are good choices to fill those spots too. So I don't think the deck is all that much weaker for it. You really only get to ECL one of them, Poe or Wrecker, and the rest you're just going to
Right.
have to play native. That's not as bad as Wrecker.
Well,
But timely
the,
intervention, I guess, too. I
yeah, I was gonna
forgot
say
about that.
maybe,
Yeah.
but maybe not. We do have timely intervention. That was something else that I was gonna keep an eye out when we started seeing the games, just
Mm,
because this is a risk reward inclusion. It's obviously very good with Poe and Wrecker if you've already used your energy conversion lab. It also can be a whiff for your For a Cause I Believe in. And that tends to not matter a ton when you only have the 2 inclusions. But as somebody who has won their fair share of games because people have been counting on 4 damage and they hit 3 when they only have 2 or 3 misses in the list,
mm.
it does come up.
Yeah, I mean, I love playing Cunning Sabine, and you still play you still play For a Cause I Believe in, but you do run the risk of missing. So, yeah, I kind of count on like at least 3, and 4 is like a bonus here. But we'll see. Only 2 cards that are misses in the deck for that. I'm not super worried about it. We'll see if maybe something else gets sideboarded in that lowers that chance, like the Disabling Fang Fighter or something. But I don't know about you. I'm ready to get into the games.
I am really excited to call these. So yeah,
All
let's
right,
jump in.
let's do it. Here we go. Game number 1. A little bit of shuffling here. We've got Tbird with his Luke Skywalker leader, Heroism Vigilance, running the 30 health command base, Echo base specifically, on the left side of your screen. And on the right side of your screen, we have LightsaberLarry running, of course, Heroism Aggression. Sabine with the Energy Conversion Laboratory, ECL for short, another green base on the side. So 2 players with command here. And it looks like, from what I can tell, no mulligans from either side.
Yeah, it
And
does not.
yeah, or
That's
actually,
cool.
I think Lightsaber Larry may have mulliganed once. And as I recall, I try to cut off some of the start of the VOD so we don't have to like wait too long
Okay.
before we start watching. I think he did mulligan, I believe.
I was about to say it doesn't look like it just based on the resources going down. One of the things I think very early on to watch here is going to be
Mm,
how aggressively or not LightsaberLarry uses the Sabine hero ability.
pretty
And
aggressively.
right out of the gate, it's there. I was going to
Yeah.
highlight it because this is a matchup where you have a disparity in the base health, which normally isn't a big deal for Sabine. You're used to playing against decks that have 30, but also being that this has access to so much restore, that can come back to bite you at times. But instead, we're going to just start with an incredibly strong Sabine activation, and then playing Sabine as well.
Yeah, and you notice as we go to the regroup phase that Tbird didn't play anything on turn number 1. So not having something or else, perhaps electing to just keep his hand saying, you know what, this deck heals. I've got a stronger late game. I've got a great hand if I start from 3 on. It's not something you see chosen very often, but that could be the case. Again, if he did not mulligan. Then if he did, sometimes you just run into that. Let's see what the 3-drop is. It is going to be an Echo-based Defender. Okay, yeah, so nice little roadblock. Throw in the way of Lightsaber-Larry. That's going to force at least a trade, depending on what else he's got in his hand.
Now, this is going to be a really interesting decision point because normally you want to save your energy conversion lab for your big plays, as you said, a Wrecker, a Poe, or even just a K2SO.
Yeah.
K2SO is still a turn away, though. So is Lightsaber-Larry willing to give this Sabine up or not?
Okay.
But we've got the Wing Leader, which is the perfect answer.
Yes, it is. I was a little bit worried when the Fleet Lieutenant came down there, but he put it on the space side, so you can tell he was planning on throwing the Wing Leader there instead. Oh, also, shout out to Lightsaber-Larry and Tbird, our first match where we actually have ground and space matching up in Conquer the Cave. So well done there. Well done. You've done it. You've cracked the code. Yep. So that does mean that the Sabine is going to be able to trade into the Echo-based Defender without dying, which is pretty huge, actually. He establishes that 2-1 in space as well. You can see Tbird grab the initiative there. And yeah, there's that attack into the Echo-based Defender. And, not a bad start so far for Lightsaber-Larry.
Yeah, and the trigger from Sabine should be going toward the base here because you already have enough damage to cover it. Yep, we see the damage go down. Sabine will survive with 1 health, and then again we'll have to wait and see if the hero gets activated because Lightsaber-Larry already did it once in initiative as well. Yep, I was about to say I have to assume that that's going to continue to be the game plan, and when you have this aggressive start, I don't hate it.
Yeah, I feel like, especially against a deck like Luke, you really do have to put every single point of damage into their base that you can. I've played this matchup so many times, and I feel like every time I've decided not to do it, later in the game, I'm like, man, I wish I had 1 more point of damage on their base because it does tend to matter. When there's a little bit of restore there, every point really makes a difference.
Yeah, I'm usually a let's just burn it all down kind of player. I love to play Sabine, and I purposefully build my decks to almost never have initiative because I plan on activating it all the time.
Yeah.
There are still times where, you prioritize, okay, I'm not going to do it to take initiative, but 9 times out of 10, I'm just assuming I'm always going to play more cards than my opponent, which means I'm not going to have initiative anyway. So let's just keep pinging.
Yeah.
And I have seen, some players be timid to that play style, especially in the mirror, but I'm a go-getter.
Me too, man. I've always said, like, if you're not damaging your own base, why are you playing Sabine? Yeah, that's the point. Yeah. Kanan Jarrus comes down for Tbird, and that's going to be his turn. That's it. No more resources. And so now if you're Lightsaber-Larry, you're like, all right, I kind of get to dictate how the rest of this one goes. How much damage do I want to put into my opponent? This is the flip turn for Sabine. He's got 4 resources on top of that. So the big question is, I think, is how much damage can Lightsaber-Larry push this turn? This is a crucial turn for the Sabine player. That's going to help.
All right. So Fleet Lieutenant here is
it'd be
pretty
7
interesting.
Total. 7 total if he decides to ping the base as well, which I would imagine. I don't think he's going to trade with the Kanan.
Yeah, I don't think you are trading if you played Fleet.
Oh,
because you trade already with Kanan. With you just ping the Defender, you've got the 4. So with the Fleet Lieutenant coming down, you have to assume that's all going base.
Yeah.
That also likely means we're going to get 6 more damage out of this turn because you got a Wing Leader, the activation, flip Sabine, the swing for 3 as well, and also just going to develop the board. I think Lightsaber-Larry, by playing that Spec Force, is either got another one in hand or just kind of doing the math and saying, hey, if I go wide enough, this isn't a list that has access to like Overwhelming Barrage or Bombing Run. So I feel confident that I can just continue to go wide and apply the pressure.
And so that is 16 damage, over half the total life that base has on Tbird's Echo base right now. And I do get a little bit nervous with the Spec Force play just because Obi-Wan Kenobi is a pretty common include in this Luke Skywalker list, and that can kind of shut you down cold if you establish another Sentinel behind it. So I'm with you. Like you said, either he's got another one in his hand, or he's saying, you know what, I'm just going to go all out. And when you're playing Sabine, going all out is usually not a bad decision.
It's also the possibility that when you're looking at the board state, Obi-Wan's still a turn away. We're only hitting 5 resources.
Yeah,
So on
enough.
this turn, you've got no Obi-Wan, no Luke yet. And again, if you go wide here, Kanan's going to trade with something and heal. That's unavoidable. But you can continue to apply a bunch of pressure. And then because you still have energy conversion lab, I was just about to say,
wow. That's a big
because
hit.
you still have it, you can play things like Wrecker, but that's a big discard.
Yeah.
Finishing my train of thought though, if you can get enough damage in, then you put yourself in a position where you can win with some combination of like For a Cause I Believe In or an ECL to go over the top.
Yeah, definitely. That one does sting a little bit, losing the Wrecker to the Kanan Jarrus attack. In case you're curious, Kanan Jarrus, when he attacks, you discard the top card of your deck, and for each aspect icon, you heal for 2. So Wrecker has Heroism and Aggression, and that means Tbird gets 2 health back. And that means that 1 out of the 2 Wreckers are gone for LightsaberLarry. What's the plan now?
So if LightsaberLarry has a K2SO, and he ECLs it into Kanan right now and chooses to take the damage, he has enough to threaten lethal this turn. And there is the K2SO. I was just doing that math. So Tbird here is going to have some sort of healing or removal, or a Sentinel maybe buys him time. But again, 1 resource still open, and that Spec Force might have been a like bait, could be sitting on the second one. But right now, if Tbird doesn't have a way to heal or do something to answer, there's enough damage on the board for Lightsaber to close this out.
That is absolutely huge. Getting the 6 damage in, 3 over the top of the overwhelm, another 3 from the removal, and there's the takedown. Okay, so, you know, the old joke is that Sabine's leader ability is actually make your opponent discard 1 takedown. But there, you know, that's what it's there for, right? And, you know, we'll see now if LightsaberLarry, you know, can put in enough damage this turn to maybe, just maybe finish things off next turn.
Well, you're still going to put them within range of For a Cause I Believe In. Sure. Even if you're hitting 1 timely intervention, you would have to hit both of the ones in your deck to not have that immediately win. But then even after that, you also still have your hero ability. So everything is coming up LightsaberLarry at this stage of the game because Tbird skipped that first turn, hasn't really been able to establish a defensive position, as well as has only got 1 healing trigger off of the Kanan attack. So really just played from behind the entire game.
I mean, I was kind of wondering if we were going to see a heroic resolve. You know, we know he's running them. He had 1 resource remaining. That might have gotten very dangerous right there just on that turn, despite the takedown coming in for the Sabine. But this is it. This is the turn Tbird either stabilizes or, you know, he is not long for this world here in game number 1. He is on the play, I believe.
Yeah, he has initiative. And so the biggest issue is the Fleet Lieutenant already threatens lethal. So you're going to have to do something that either heals or takes care of that. Again, maybe a Sentinel on that side. You do still run the risk of if you play a Sentinel there, they could swing with Wing Leader, and now you have to heal with your next action, or else the hero ability will take you out.
Right.
There's a lot of nuance to the sequencing of this turn, because even if Tbird stops 1 threat, there are still so many ways that Lightsaber can close this out.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult, and that is going to be a timely intervention, I believe, right? Yeah, okay. And he's going to ambush in the restored Arc 170. That's actually a great play. It takes out the Wing Leader, still lives, and restores for 1. So talk about the right cards at the right time for Tbird. Like that is something that could potentially get him back in it. That said, there's still 3 damage from the Fleet Lieutenant like we're seeing, and then add the Sabine ping in there. That's game. So what else does he have with those 3 resources to try to stay alive? He hasn't conceded yet.
Yeah, I don't remember if Tbird's list was running Make an Opening or not, but Make an Opening would buy you time here. You could take care of the Spec Force and heal outside, but unfortunately just has the Luke deploy, which means LightsaberLarry is going to be the victor in game 1 with an onslaught right out of the gate.
That's right. All right, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, for game number 2 between LightsaberLarry and Tbird. LightsaberLarry taking the game 1 win, and you know, Charmer, you and I were chatting a little bit in the break between games here, and it is rough if you don't have that turn 1 play against a Sabine. You are behind a lot.
Yeah, you are behind, not just in terms of board presence, but also behind on what I call the clock, right?
Right.
Sabine has a clock, and they are trying to race to the finish of that as a countdown timer, if you will. And you've got to have something to get in the way, even if it's just speed bumps, force them to take some value trades, something. But there was absolutely zero counter pressure from Tbird in that first game. And, you know, I was saying earlier that I was going to pick favorites. Clearly, I had to pick LightsaberLarry because
Sure.
I'm a Dirty Sabine player. It's my favorite character in Star Wars, and I love her. So I'm rooting for you, Larry. Let's see if we can close this out.
I mean, we'll see, right? I mean, coming into this, you see the golden crown shining on the head of Tbird's leader of choice there on the left side of the screen. So he did come into this as a champion, but I'm not gonna play favorites. I refuse to pick sides here. That said, I played a lot of Sabine into Luke Skywalker command games, and I did not have a good time with that matchup. So, I feel like, maybe I can live vicariously through LightsaberLarry if he's able to win this one. But at the same time, it would be pretty sick to see Tbird win 2 in a row. First time that's happened on Conquer the Cave, if it ends up being the case. But he's got to come back. Down a game, yeah. And when you're down a game to a Sabine, that puts you in a very risky situation with how explosive the Sabine list can be.
It does kind of put you in a bit of a pickle. However, when you have access to vigilance and command, there's a lot of ways that you can help stabilize your gameplay, especially after the sideboard. So with that in mind, even though LightsaberLarry has one game already in the series, this is definitely not over. As you said, Tbird's wearing that crown for a reason, and they say when you come at the king, you best not miss. Lightsaber has to be as on point as he was in that first matchup.
Yeah, I mean, game 1 was definitely not a miss. There was some pretty nice tech there. I mean, seeing 2 fleet lieutenants is just a great thing for a Sabine deck. That's always going to be a good game there. And all the other threats out there too, right? He was able to ECL the K2SO, and yeah, there's the Kuil. But like I said, I don't know how big of a fan of Kuil I am in this deck. I love it in double vigilance, but in this deck there are so many misses. I don't know. I'm a Kuil doubter in this one.
There's a lot of misses, but the most important thing, especially in this matchup, is that keyword restore. I think Tbird would be fine with missing every shot as long as this gets to attack at least 2 or 3 times, right? What you want out of this is to get that value. Now we're gonna have an answer of Sabine from LightsaberLarry, and this is a good kind of counterplay because by itself Kuil can't clear that, and if Kuil just ignores her and wants to go base, for example, with the initiative, LightsaberLarry can pick off Kuil with a value trade. The other side of things as well is that if you swing first with your Kuil, you won't be able to get the value from the restore. And if you don't swing first with it, as I said, you could just lose it immediately. So there's going to be a lot of decision making here for Tbird with the initiative as we go into turn 2, but we're not there quite yet. LightsaberLarry could still ping the Sabine, I believe.
I agree too. I would definitely use the Sabine ability here. I mean, yeah, sure, you could be like, well, Kuil's just going to heal it. Yeah, but like, that's still just going to be another damage here. All right, yep, those resources needed to be exhausted for the Sabine earlier, and I think you just do it. Again, like, if you're not hitting your own base, why are you playing Sabine? You just got to do it. You just got to do it. You don't care if the leader is going to, heal on the other side next turn. You just got to keep pinging, Go into the regroup phase.
Just keep pinging, just keep pinging, just keep pinging.
That's right. All right, third resource goes down. LightsaberLarry taking a little bit to decide that resource. And the thing is, when you're playing these aggro decks, it's really tough because you're like, okay, what's my next 3 turns going to be based on what's in my hand right now? Do I want to give myself maybe multiple turn 3 or turn 4 options for what I'm going to play? The resourcing decisions do get a little bit complex, but the turn begins, the phase begins rather, and Kuil goes in. Restore 1, is it a hit? No, it's a miss.
It is a miss, and it's a miss on timely intervention.
That's a hit. It is a hit. Yeah, my bad.
Sorry.
I'm thinking, I'm so used to like double vigilance with Kuil. I'm like, oh, it's not blue. His base is green. His base is green. It's a hit. I promise you we play this game.
You bamboozled me. You're like, it's a miss. I'm like, yeah, it's a miss, because then my brain went immediately to that as well.
I'm so
And
convincing.
it doesn't help that before we started recording this, you and I had long talks about double vigilance ray and how much
Yeah,
we love Kuil and that. So it's on the brain, but
that's
we're
true.
going to have a beautiful answer here with the Sabine and
Huh.
the Fleet Lieutenant. Likely go into the base here.
Okay, okay. I don't mind this. I mean, LightsaberLarry saying the classic card game, "I am the beatdown," and saying, you know what, you can restore one. That's fine. I'm just gonna do tons of damage. You have to remove my units. You're the one who needs to trade. That said, Tbird just throws down another unit that can restore. Throws down the restored Arc 170 and says, "All right, I'm just gonna put down more healing. Maybe you have to deal with that now."
Yeah, I was really curious about what LightsaberLarry was going to do with that attack. Now, knowing that they have the Fleet Lieutenant, I think you just take the damage. But there was a window where you would maybe consider you swing with your Sabine into Kuil, but then you just have the on attack trigger clean up Kuil so that you get rid of it and you keep your unit. It's not ideal. Obviously, you want to put pressure on the base, but if you can get a free trade like that and then still develop behind it, that's sometimes really beneficial. The one drawback to that potential play pattern, though, would have been you just saw Tbird draw that timely intervention. So whatever you develop behind your Sabine, it either has to be big enough to survive an ambush, or you have to be okay with your Sabine maybe dying to whatever they could potentially ambush in. So
Yeah.
in this case, knowing they have the lieutenant, I like just starting the race, get that clock moving so that you can get as much damage on the base as possible.
Yeah, I mean, part of it too is that, if that was his only 3 resource play, then you just play the Fleet Lieutenant, you just go to base, you just maximize what your cards can do. There's a little bit of trading going on. Kuil actually does hit again. Here comes the Battlefield Marine into the hand. And, maybe I should stop talking trash about the Kuil. That was 2 attacks and 2 hits. But I still maintain that I don't like it as much in these lists where there's a lot of off-base aspect stuff, but hey, it worked out for Tbird that time, so I can't really say a lot, can I?
Listen, Kuil has spoken, and
He
you better
has.
put some respect on his name.
I will
So
from now on.
we have the swing from the Fleet Lieutenant on an open field. This tells me that LightsaberLarry likely does not have a General Dodonna in hand. If you have a Dodonna, you probably want to lead with it just because you would get more value out of your Fleet Lieutenant swing, but also you typically want to play that before Sabine, because as you had said before, a lot of times when you deploy Sabine, she just eats a takedown, but if you play Dodonna first, it forces your opponent to deal with that. Otherwise, the Sabine is outside of takedown range, so again, that would have been like a key leadoff, and right now, LightsaberLarry now has to present something that forces Tbird to use some of these resources if you're trying to play around the takedown. But we're gonna have to wait and see what it is. And
He's gonna. Is he looking for a 5? No, just all right.
I think he hadn't put the damage on from the restored arc yet.
Oh, could be. Yeah, could be. All right. I mean, one easy way to kind of delay things is just to use your Sabine ability. Do damage each base. The thing is Tbird can essentially just keep passing, because LightsaberLarry, it's not one of those turns where they pass and you're like, all right, I'll take initiative. You have to do something. He's going to play the K2SO here, which is a great 4-resource turn play. Just establishing that K2SO is a very threatening position to be in as a Sabine player. And will Tbird pass here? If he passes, you're kind of projecting a takedown. When this happens to me, I just flip the Sabine anyway, because I'm like, whatever. If you've got it, you've got it, But no, we're going to see a play. He's just going to take down the K2SO. Okay, all right. Interesting. So K2SO does theoretically present more damage than the Sabine if it's left alone. That said, now LightsaberLarry free to flip the leader without much consequence.
Well, there is also a part of me that wonders if there's just multiple takedowns in Tbird's hand, and that could be a possibility, because we did see Kuil draw 2 times. One of them was a timely intervention, and if there wasn't an immediate need, that could have been one of the resourced cards, meaning that you essentially got a free draw 2 for a turn. You didn't have to make a decision because Kuil kind of made it for you. And we know Tbird has removal options, playing Vigilance and Command, so
Yeah.
Even if it's not a takedown, potentially some other answer for the Sabine where you feel comfortable enough to just say, let's get rid of K2SO now. I don't want to deal with him.
You know, the thing is if he does have another takedown, it doesn't solve the problem of the Fleet Lieutenant just hitting you for 3 each turn. Sure, you're healing for 1 of that, but that's still annoying. That's still a lot of damage getting through. And you're not establishing anything on your side of the board. But if he does have a second takedown, I mean, you're still absolutely going to use it. There's not much choice.
Yeah, I think that the game plan right now, and just kind of in general, I think with the Luke decks in this matchup, is to survive and mitigate as much damage as possible until Resource 6. Resource 6 is when things like Obi-Wan come online, you get your leader who comes online, you can start kind of turning the corner and establishing a firmer board presence where you can stabilize better. But you're absolutely right. Right now, everything is kind of a 1-to-1 answer. And when that's the case, this is kind of a really impactful opener because you're going to get the full value out of these. A Rebel Assault.
I like it. So Rebel Assault lets you attack with 2 rebels at once. Does that for 6 more damage onto base. 21 damage on base already. Still 4 resources remaining for LightsaberLarry. I was wondering, hey, maybe are we going to see the Darksaber show up this turn? That would also stuff the takedown. But no, it's going to be that Rebel Assault. Now it's going to be a timely intervention from Tbird. What's it going to play?
It's got to be a Kanan here for the heal. Yep.
Yeah, Kanan would be big, and that's exactly what it is. Does heal.
So
go ahead.
I just wanted to correct. You said 6, but I think one of the things that's easily forgotten and why I'm such a huge fan of Rebel Assault is that it also gives an attack bonus. So that was actually a spend 1 resource, get 8 damage on the opponent.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. That's a good point. Discarding a Fleet Lieutenant, which is actually great for LightsaberLarry because that's only 1 healing then instead of 2 for Tbird. Only 1 aspect symbol on that card. So Kanan comes in, does 4 damage to Sabine, only heals for 1. There's a Heroic Resolve. And he's going to put that on the Fleet Lieutenant, it looks like. No. Showing that one. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, doing a little show, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I like it here just because Tbird is already kind of showing that he plans on attacking into the Sabine anyway. And so if you put it on the Sabine and then try to activate it immediately, you're kind of doing his job for him. Whereas if you go this route, you can essentially provide a wider range of threats, right? You're trying to diversify your portfolio, if you will. Invest in more than just stocks and bonds on the board. You also want Fleet Lieutenants and Fang Fighters.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary, right? Because now if LightsaberLarry, you know, I didn't see if he got initiative or not. I don't think he did because he played that Disabling Fang Fighter, but if he had, I mean, that would be an 8 damage attack right off the bat from Fleet Lieutenant if you decide to pop the Heroic Resolve. So we'll see. But
so 10 health remaining.
Yeah. LightsaberLarry in a pretty dominant position at the moment, but, and there's a big but, however, in terms of we're playing against Luke Skywalker Command here, so this is one of those decks that can suddenly throw down a lot of healing. He probably runs Vigilance. Usually that they run a couple of those. That would swing things a bit. You might be running Obi-Wan Kenobi or something to block some of the attacks, buff Kanan again. So it's definitely not over. And there's going to be the trade with the Sabine. Kanan will live. And let's see what the healing ends up being as LightsaberLarry discards this next card here in a second.
So just real quick, I would like to point out, it looks like LightsaberLarry stayed at 5 resources. That takes away the play that I was potentially anticipating, which would have been an ECL Wrecker. Does still leave open something like either a Poe or, more importantly, another K2SO if you have a second one. And the reason that those are important and the reason that I was most interested in a potential Wrecker is when Kanan makes that trade, he goes down to 1 health. So anything overwhelming is going to deal almost their full damage to the opponent's base. So right now, a K2SO is worth 6 damage directly.
Yeah. It's one of those situations, too, where it's like if you don't have the 6 costs in your hand, you might as well just stay at 5, give yourselves more options to play, and he is going to pop that Heroic Resolve, it looks like.
Yeah,
And
this is going to be a big attack.
I mean, you talked about the overwhelm, right? He can choose to run this into the Kanan Jarrus if he wants to, and that's
Yep.
exactly what he's going to do. Yep, so that's going to be, what, 7 damage through on base? Because it was 8 minus the 1 health left that Kanan had.
A lot of damage going back on Tbird. Would not be surprised if this is just a restored art trade to clean up the Fang Fighter and get the 1 healing.
Probably, yeah. Yep, 24 damage on base now for Tbird. And will it be that trade that you talked about? I think you're probably right there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they're just talking through because Sabine was defeated this turn, so she should be exhausted there. It's not an activation.
You are correct.
No, looks like we are going to see instead
there's a vigilance.
A vigilance. Okay.
Yeah. Yep, and
this is a big deal for Tbird.
Yeah, that's massive. Gets to take out the disabling Fang Fighter, lets his restored Arc 170. It is a restored Arc 170. Lets it live to heal some more, and he heals probably 5 damage off the base there. Yeah, that's the case, going down to, looks like 19 damage on base then. Green Squadron A-Wing. Luke flipping. Uh-oh.
That actually might have been enough to seal it for Tbird. Obviously, the game's not over yet, but the 5 health was a big deal. I was kind of doing some quick math, and if the restored Arc was forced to trade, there was a situation where LightsaberLarry could have answered with a for a cause, taken initiative, and then finished with a second one or something else that did equivalent damage. But now he's just too far away from being able to burst Tbird down. Tbird still has even more health available in the base after the restored Arc swing, so you have to do 12 damage to Tbird to close it out.
And I think, yeah, okay, and he did put the shield on the restored Arc 170 as well, and then hit that into the Green Squadron A-Wing, so that took away 2 of the health there, popped the shield. Probably a decent usage for that. Looks like we're into the regroup phase again, going up to 7 resources is Tbird. But this is one of those games, man. I'm starting to feel it, where this is one of those Luke games where he just drags it back from the brink of defeat. That healing, that board control. We're getting into the stage of the game that the Luke Skywalker player is going to have all the big threats to play.
Well, we hit the magic resource 6, right? Once Luke can deploy, we didn't see the Obi-Wan, but we still got to see a Vigilance. That's also live at 6, and that's another big deal. So overall, Tbird doing everything properly here to stabilize. Little curious about the sequencing. Swinging with Luke first to give the shield, and then swinging with the restored Arc to get rid of the shield does technically mean that this A-Wing can now attack into the restored Arc and clear it, whereas if you take the damage first and then put the shield on after the fact, it would only have 1 health, but it would also soak all the instances of damage. And so now we're going to see this heroic sacrifice.
Wow.
And that is, I guess he's not going to run over the Arc, just going to go straight to the base. But could have also been a situation where you still lost the Arc as a result.
Yeah, I feel like we see a little bit of desperation coming through from LightsaberLarry's side right now, going for that heroic sacrifice on the A-Wing. I mean, that kills the A-Wing, like we just saw, and it only gets his opponent to 22 damage on base. There's more restore already on the board. I would have maybe leaned towards trading that A-Wing with the restored Arc 170 instead, you don't even need to buff the A-Wing to do that. It does 3 damage on its own anyway. And this, to me, kind of is starting to say that LightsaberLarry has run out of gas.
Maybe, or this actually could be really heads up. If there's not another burst healing option available to Tbird, you could potentially, we're going to develop the K2SO. I was going to say you could potentially play something like a for a cause here. Hope Tbird plays something else on the ground, not named Luke Skywalker. And then if you take initiative, you could ECL over top of it with something like your second Wrecker or another K2SO. Now that we're seeing that developed, that's less likely because I believe there's only 1 in the deck. But there was a situation where you could have been kind of very sneakily trying to set up a win with initiative situation.
Yeah, I suppose that's possible. Ooh, Yoda comes down now. And sure, I mean, the K2SO has enough to, take that out and live, but it's a little bit too late. And it's unfortunate, too, because that K2SO into Yoda is something you would have loved to ECL if you're LightsaberLarry, right? So you kill it, keep your K2SO alive. That said, Luke Skywalker attacking is going to be able to put a shield on one of those units, puts it on the Yoda now. And things are looking a little bit sketchy for LightsaberLarry's chances here in game number 2.
It's a little sketchy, but let's do some quick math. Lightsaber is not in danger of just dying to one attack from Tbird right out of the gate. So if he takes initiative, and there it is, we could see a situation where you lean in with K2SO and then try to do, okay, that changes the math. That's like a huge modded cohort. I was about to say, if you swing with the K2SO and then you do something off of the back of it, you might have a shot. I was also thinking about like another heroic sacrifice there. Could have been a huge life point swing, but Tbird not taking any chances, and I think that might have sealed it.
I mean, here's the thing, though. He's at 26 damage on base. A perfect 4 damage for a cause I believe in from LightsaberLarry would end the game, end the series. He has the initiative. Does he have the card, and can he flip 4 damage with it? There is a chance for LightsaberLarry. I feel like if he doesn't have it, though, it's going to be so hard to win this game. Let's see what he's got.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. Well, we do still also have the leader activation. Obviously, if you don't get there right away, but maybe you develop something and try to bait the Yoda into cleaning up the shield, and then you can ECL over the top of it. Like there's a lot of weird ways with sequencing that Lightsaber could still get here, but the easiest option is to just take a shot with the 4 cause. Oh, that's 3 resources.
Oh, but it's a Cassian Andor. Okay. I mean, it does come into play ready, but, does Tbird have an answer? Another takedown would do it. Luke can't do enough damage, but there is going to be more healing coming in anyway, so it can't be like Cassian and a hero ability to finish it, because there's a lot of restore on the side of Tbird. You need Cassian and then maybe like, another heroic sacrifice possibly. And even then, I don't know. Oh, traitorous! Cassian joins the, I was going to say the dark side, but not really. He joins the other light side, I guess.
He does what spies do and flip sides.
Yep, that's, so I think that for me, Battlefield Marine comes in. Sure, you've got that 3/3 on the board, but I mean, just look at all the restore. There's 3 points of restore between the Yoda and the Restore Dark 170 on Tbird's side. You've got the damage from all that. You've got the Luke Skywalker.
You have lethal though too, because Cassian came in ready.
Yeah, you're right.
And you can swing with it. You've just got enough damage on the board. So this is going to be it, and Tbird's going to force a game 3. But I do really appreciate that LightsaberLarry played to his outs, because again, it was not looking great, but there were potential ways that he could have won that game. He just didn't find them. So we are going to be going to the all-important game 3.
That's right. All tied up. Let's see who takes it. All right, we're back for game number 3. Still a little bit of cleanup being done here. Some of the hands have been drawn, but I don't think LightsaberLarry wants to leave that damage on his base going into the 3rd and final game of the series here on Conquer the Cave between our reigning champion Tbird and our challenger LightsaberLarry. Gotta shout out LightsaberLarry for the way he played game 2 despite the loss. He put himself in a position to win, and it required a top deck, right? It required having that for a cause I believe in, and required getting 4 damage out of it. But when you're playing an aggro deck like this, a lot of times you'll sneak wins just by taking improbable situations and putting yourself in the position to capitalize on it. When your opponent goes, oh, you got so lucky, it's like, sure, but I put myself in the position to have that potential be a thing at all. And when you're playing aggro, you need to play in that way. So shout out to LightsaberLarry, I think, for kind of playing that out as best as he could given the situation. Didn't top deck what he was looking for, but hey, here we are with another opportunity, and this is big. Either another one takes the cave, or Tbird becomes our first 2-week champion.
Yeah, as I think back through the sequencing of those last couple of turns, there is one spot where it probably didn't make a difference, and it's really hard to know without seeing Larry's hand. But when he played the K2SO, I don't think that he had activated his leader yet. And I think if that was the
Okay.
case, I would have liked to have seen him stall, activate the leader, and then see if T-Bird then developed that Yoda. Because as you had said,
Yeah.
it would have been great if you could just clean that up, if only because you stopped the restore from it. It doesn't even matter that you're not getting the overwhelm value. You'd prefer that they play something smaller, but I think T-Bird is going to be heads up to not, play into that. But just allowing the Yoda to hit the board and then the cohort to clean it up meant that you had that many more things to worry about on your turn. So I might go back and watch it when this is live, but I do think that there was an opportunity to stall. Now, there's no guarantee that T-Bird takes the bait there, could have done something else, but as you think through sequencing and you're watching this at home, those types of things are where you can potentially find ways to improve as a player.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I don't recall if he had activated the leader ability or not, but if he hadn't, that might end up making the difference. But that's a beautiful thing about this game, is whenever you lose, and there's the final game fist bump. You love to see it. Love to see the sportsmanship from the players in the Discord. But like I was saying, this is just what I love about the game, right? Where you go back and there's so much depth to the decision making, and it really is those tiniest of tiny things that can sometimes determine the winner. LightsaberLarry starting things off with a Sabine ability, and that's a nice early drop for Tbird. Getting the 3/3 on the board against Sabine, huge. Oh, and no play for LightsaberLarry? No way. Oh,
yeah.
no.
So I was about to say, if you lead off with your leader ability, 9 times out of 10, what that means as a Sabine player is that I have both a space unit and a ground unit. And if I'm on the play, right, if I have initiative, I want to let you develop so I can avoid it. Because like if you play your Sabine and they play Battlefield Marine, for example, then you either have to sacrifice your ping and take initiative, or you just accept that your Sabine is going to get traded into, right? But if you have one of each, a space and a ground, you can ping and then just kind of evade where they're going. But not having a play is not at all what I thought that was signaling. And now we're seeing a ping again.
That is so rough. Oh man. I can't, you just can't say enough as a Sabine player, and both of us were Sabine players in set 1 to not have that. Oh my gosh. And then the Star Viper comes out. That's the one that gives you a bit of restore when you have the initiative. And it's a 3/3 in space, a 3/3 in space, a 3/3 on the ground, and nothing on the Sabine side of the board. This is a disastrous start for game 3 for LightsaberLarry. You cannot overstate how rough this is. Oh, he has to ECL his disabling Fang Fighter just to clear space. And that is, I mean, I don't blame him for doing that, at least keeping one lane open. But man, if I were a betting man charmer, I would already be a little bit hesitant to bet on LightsaberLarry this game. I gotta say, it's a rough start.
Yeah. So I don't remember if I saw LightsaberLarry mulligan or not. You have to assume that they did, because there's no way you keep a hand without a first turn play. But I just think about the typical Sabine list, and if you have no first turn play and you mulligan and then you get a second hand with no first turn play, like what are the odds? Right. Somebody, run that through the calculator and then post it in the comments for this video, because that is bleak.
And it happens too, right? I mean, I think all of us that have played aggro in like any card game have had those series, right? Where it's just for some reason the universe just doesn't want you to win. And the game's not over yet, of course, but look at this. 5 damage on the base already between the hit from the Battlefield Marine and the 2 damage that Larry's done with his hero ability. And we are going into the Sabine Ren flip turn, and there is nothing on the board for the Sabine player. And the ECL has been used already. It is an incredibly difficult start for LightsaberLarry in game 3. If he gets out of this one, it is going to be one of the biggest comebacks in Sabine history, man.
So I do like the kind of stall play there. It does allow Tbird to get the Echo-based defender up, but that was going to happen regardless. Yeah. So you just kind of take the ping, hope that means they play something so you don't have to worry about takedown. Now you have your full resources. I would personally love to see a Dodana here. Dodonna and Sabine together means that Sabine could clean up the Echo Base Defender and live, and then you'd still have your Dodonna there that wouldn't die to a Marine.
Oh, but then you put a shield on it with Luke. Oh man, great leader activation. This is why Luke Skywalker is going to be a threat, for the rest of time. Is just the ability to put that shield on something like that slows down an aggro deck so much. What do you have as LightsaberLarry? Like, you can't really run the R2D2. Oh man. Oh, Larry. At least you get to look at the top card of your deck. He's going to leave it on top, but it hurts.
Well,
it hurts bad.
The worst part here is really you had to use a Fang Fighter to clean up the Star Viper. So you spent your ECL, but you also spent your thing that you probably sideboarded in specifically to remove those shields, right?
Yeah.
So now they're likely just going to get full value from the shield on that Echo Base Defender. And to make matters worse, your opponent has just big threatening units over there. Is that 3 damage on the Battlefield Marine?
I was going to say, I think you meant to put 2 on there because it should be 2 damage on the Battlefield Marine.
Yeah.
From Sabine. I think there was some confusion about the ping, and then this, So I would say, from what we can see, that Battlefield Marine has 2 damage on it and 1 HP remaining. If I were judging this game, I'd be like, get one of those damage counters off there. You don't need that there. But the bigger story here is that he had to trade the Sabine into the Echo Base Defender's shield. Oh. That hurts.
That is just not something that feels great. So
that hurts.
ECL already spent for LightsaberLarry. Sabine came and went, and we are still not even at resource turn 6 yet, which again is when this deck really comes online. LightsaberLarry has only gotten 4 damage on the base. This is about as bad as it gets when you talk about an opener for a Sabine into a deck like this.
Yeah. I wonder how long it's going to take them to see the damage thing on the Battlefield Marine. It's just, there we go.
Oh. Hey!
They traded. Okay, yeah. He knew. All right. So there you go. The trade did happen again. Remember, there was 1 HP remaining on the Marine.
So that's also problematic because the Fleet Lieutenant should be trading into the Echo Base Defender that has Sentinel.
Oh, I think the Battlefield Marine is what attacked there. It was a Battlefield Marine attacking into the Fleet
initiative.
Lieutenant.
Okay,
that's right.
That makes a lot more sense.
Right, because then Tbird has the initiative. He makes that attack. He trades with the Fleet Lieutenant. That means that R2 can't trade into the Echo Base Defender, obviously. So it kind of puts Larry on the play again, where it's like, well, now you have to come up with an answer for this. So yeah, that was all above board. That was fine. That was Tbird having the initiative and choosing to attack his 3-1 essentially after the damage into the 3-3. Of LightsaberLarry. So what's it going to be for LightsaberLarry next here? 2 resources. He's going to Timely Intervention. Okay. Ooh, nice hyperspace Timely Intervention there as well. For another Fleet Lieutenant. Okay. So now you can choose the order of things here. So the question is, which one will go into the Echo Base Defender?
It pretty much has to be the Fleet Lieutenant because otherwise you don't get to swing with the other one because Fleet Lieutenant is only gaining ambush. So if you swing first with R2, then your Fleet Lieutenant just hangs out. Whereas if you do it this way...
That's probably true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That being said, like as good as that is, it's not great because your opponent still has 5 resources, and we're at the point in the game where I would not be shocked if we see something like Kanan with a shield on it, which would be a nightmare.
Yeah, or even Yoda with a shield would be totally fine. There's the Yoda.
And there is a Yoda.
With 3 resources spent, that was kind of what was telegraphed, especially already seeing a couple other cards here. And LightsaberLarry, no resources, no flip, just has to give away the initiative. I believe that's kind of what we're seeing here. Oh, no, wait. Thinking maybe, do I use the Sabine ability? I say go for it, man. You just got to keep hammering him with the ability. No, he's going to grab the initiative. Okay. Yep.
I don't hate this, if only because you are behind on board. I think that it's always proper to be pinging when you're ahead, but we're hitting the point in the game where you know that this is not going to be over soon. and your opponent is going to flip their leader next turn. They've got a Yoda with Restore 2 and a shield that's going to be on it. So I feel like making sure that you can maybe have the first action and potentially deal with things before they can restore is as good as dealing damage. It's going to net you more.
Yeah, okay, you coward. Sure. Sure.
Look, I would
Play
have picked.
Sabine. Doesn't
I'm here
use the
for a
ability.
good time, not for a long time. That's why I play Sabine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair argument to make too. Is it's going to be a little bit longer of a game. I think the counter logic to that is, you don't want it to be a long game. As Sabine, you want to. The longer the game goes, the less your chances of winning will be. That said,
Well,
you can't really avoid it this time around. So
yeah, that ship has sailed. I will say, if anything, we kind of talked about the list and maybe the lack of owning certain cards or whatever.
Sure.
This is definitely a situation where not having more copies of Poe is going to come back to hurt you.
Totally.
Because it's such a good card in this matchup. It doesn't die to takedown. It doesn't die directly to a lot of attacks because many of these vigilance units have, lower attack power, higher health. And it can, when you discard, peel off shields very nicely for you, as well as do other effects. So Poe is a really good card in this particular matchup, and only one in Lightsaber's list is certainly showing, the downside that creates.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like we're going to go to... LightsaberLarry is going to be using the Sabine ability first. We saw him kind of give us a sneak peek at that Spec Force soldier in his hand. That looks like an Obi-Wan. Yep. 6 resources in this deck.
Yeah.
It can only be one thing. Yeah.
Let me just say, I appreciate the patience from Larry here, because now the correct play is likely to hold on to your Spec Force. You can take initiative and then lead off with it to just turn off Sentinel for the turn and then maybe do something.
Totally.
But either way, you don't just want to play it blindly here, unless you have a backup or something. Well, it's going to make me a liar, but I do think that there's an argument to be made that you hold on to that for when you need to go around the Obi-Wan.
I think the logic here, and we see the Luke flip, of course. I think the logic here is that then you can attack with R2. And I was expecting him to maybe just clear the shield on Yoda, but now with the heroic resolve, maybe there's a little bit of a different plan. But it does give you that option at least. Luke attacking in, and it's going to be a shield on the Obi-Wan Kenobi. Things don't exactly get any easier. Where's the R2 going to go?
Well, the problem here is that if R2 doesn't clean up the Luke, I think LightsaberLarry loses the game on the spot.
It does seem like since the Luke attacked into your R2, you are kind of obligated to trade. And that does kind of work in Tbird's favor as well, because then it protects what you already have out. You have shields on Yoda and all that. They are just going to go to the regroup phase, actually. So no attack from that R2-D2, despite Sentinel being turned off that turn by the Spec Force soldiers. So does LightsaberLarry have another way to get through the Sentinel and finish off the Luke? If the answer is no, I think this game is pretty much over, but we will see. I don't know if I like that. I think I would like to see the attack with the R2 there.
Yeah, I was trying to do the math. Maybe the problem was that you couldn't clear the Luke. If you could, clearing the Luke there is, I think, the only way you have a shot, simply because now we have a Sentinel with a shield, and it's going to continue to get shields. And on top of that, you also have the Yoda with the Restore, but I'm doing the math, and I don't know if he could have cleared the Luke.
I totally forgot you have to pay to activate the heroic resolve. And so, yeah, that makes a big difference there. Yeah, I have not used that card. That's a card I see in other people's lists.
So the real question now is, does LightsaberLarry magically have 3 crate dragons in his list that were not listed on his deck list and that he can race to? Because that might be the only way he has a shot here.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so
either.
His top end was 2 Mace Windows in the sideboard, and that's not going to give you not going to do a ton of good for you in this particular game. So what'll it be here? K2SO attack into the Obi-Wan to clear the shield. You do 3 damage to the base, I guess. Yeah.
Well, the biggest problem is that
It's looking rough.
the minute you clear this shield, because you couldn't clear the Luke the last time, Luke can swing and immediately give it another one, right? You have to go through multiple shields at this point. And that was also why I was saying there was an argument to be made about maybe holding on to your Spec Force, because you're going to want to be able to use it at a time where you know you can clear Luke. Otherwise, you're just locked, right? Like this is the Luke lock on the ground. And a lot of times, Sabine, when they do beat this, it is possible. It's usually because of a heavy air force. That is one thing I noticed LightsaberLarry had in his list was a fair amount of space units, and we haven't really seen them show up in any of these games so far. But I noticed he even had the regular X-Wings, and we're just not seeing him come up when he needs them.
Yeah. I could not agree more. It looked like he wanted to use the Heroic Resolve there, but then was reminded that there's a Sentinel in the way. With a shield, so put the damage back on there, put the card back on there. And, okay, so Heroic Sacrifice on the K2SO. You know, again, it's going to run into the shield. The Overwhelm isn't going to do any good, but, you know, I guess you do get the 3 damage through. But like you said, Luke just puts another shield on it. But, you know, what can he do? He has to do something this turn. If he doesn't have something that gives him Saboteur or another Spec Force soldier, that's kind of your only option if you're just sort of in the, well, let's play it out sort of mode, which I feel like this game kind of is in right now. We know his list, to my knowledge, that I can remember, doesn't have any sort of, you know, doesn't have Saboteur in it or anything like that.
Well,
the upgrade,
he does have, in the sideboard, he had Ketsu. And so Ketsu has Saboteur.
Yeah, I suppose.
We've already used the Energy Conversion Lab, though, so you would have to likely pair it with a Timely Intervention, because there's no way if you play Ketsu, it's going to survive to get that value. So you are already at a detriment in that you kind of have to have a 2-card combo just to get it to work. And then even at that point, you have to do it in a position where Luke has already been activated, so they can't re-shield it, because if you destroy all the shields, and then it's only 3 damage from Katsu, so you have to have enough to clean that up. And then after all of that, Tbird could just slam down another one because they've got all their resources open available and a bunch of cards in hand.
I mean, we haven't even talked about the possibility of Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight, the legendary, coming down this turn because he's at 7 resources. Yeah, Spec Force soldier goes in there for a couple damage on Obi-Wan, or maybe this clears the... no, okay, it's just going to be the attack to base, because why not? But yeah, things are looking pretty grim for LightsaberLarry. 17 damage on base right now. That does mean, I believe, there's near lethal on board for Tbird. Doesn't quite have it this turn, but I don't think he's gonna have to wait too much longer. I mean, the funny thing is, if Obi-Wan Kenobi does get cleared, then Tbird does have lethal on board, because the XP would come down on his other units. So LightsaberLarry is in a situation where you can't even really kill the Sentinels. So,
well,
or you just do.
Yoda would only be swinging for 4 at that point, right? Because that's just a shield token on him.
Oh, because Luke already attacked. I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm using all my brain power trying to find a way for LightsaberLarry to get back into this game, and there is just not a way.
Meteors, that's a thing.
Yeah, I mean, Tbird's internet connection goes out. Although, you know, then we wouldn't avoid, you know, we wouldn't award anyone the win there. We just have them pick up the game where they left off. But yeah, something short of extinction level event. You know, won't be enough, I think, to save
Divine
LightsaberLarry.
intervention from the Force.
Yeah,
through the Force, all things is possible.
I mean, Tyler Parrott descending from on high to errata all the cards in Tbird's deck to just be blank. I don't, you know, maybe that's what we need here. I don't know if a lot else would help.
LightsaberLarry sideboarded in Danny Schaefer.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so there's one of those X-Wings I was talking about. Oh, the timely! I mean, it doesn't matter because there's only 7 damage anyway, but it's like salt in the wound.
It's insult to
even
injury.
When you're taking the desperation for a cause, you don't even get full value.
Yeah, this is where as a Sabine player, you're like, well, at least I got them to double-digit damage on base.
Yeah.
Oh, man, 19 damage on base. I think Yeah, it's kind of we're sort of running out the clock here. We're playing the game out, but it's looking like Tbird's got this one locked down. Marauder coming in, doesn't get the extra resource, I believe. Here comes the X-Wing, and there's the initiative, and that'll do it. I believe that'll be with the first attack plus whatever Tbird decides to swing with second, should be enough to do the damage. We're gonna play this thing to the last action because why not, right?
Yeah, I think the Marauder is essentially what seals it.
Yeah.
Because there was, scenarios where if you have your second timely intervention that's in your list, that plus a wrecker here might have been enough to save you on the ground. But now that they have initiative, they can swing with something on the ground and then go with the Marauder in the air to clean it up. And there's not much Larry can do knowing what his deck list is.
Totally. Let's see what he's got.
Well, it's not him to start, right? Like that's the problem. It's Tbird, so Tbird's
gonna get one action.
Yeah,
he'll get his one action, but like I said, there's nothing really that LightsaberLarry can do to do this one. And it was a well played series. Game 1 really going LightsaberLarry's way. Game number 2 very very close. Game 3 though, that lack of a first turn play, combined with the incredible start that Tbird had in that game is going to be enough to do it. You can see the cards getting packed up right now, and that means it's over. Tbird will win the match and be our first 2-time champion here on Conquer the Cave. Well, how about that? I mean, you got to feel for LightsaberLarry a little bit. That was a rough end of the series. That was a pretty miserable game number 3 from the Sabine player's perspective. But you know what? At the end of the day, you've chosen to play a card game, and these are just things that happen in a card game. And I think he played well with the resources that he had, in the game. And, this is one of the things where I tend to feel that the Luke deck is generally a little bit favored in these matchups to begin with. So to make it close, I think is great. I think it could have gone either way had the beginning of game number 3 been different, but it is what it is. And, credit on Tbird's side too. There is such a thing as having the ability to play from an advantage. And I think that was done quite well as well. So a well-deserved 2 week in a row win for Tbird. And now I'll have to see if the next challenger can knock him out of the cave.
Yeah. The real thing that I want to point out about this series in particular is it showed the importance of board presence in this game. This is a game that is meant for us to play our favorite Star Wars characters and then have them fight it out. And we saw in game 1, Tbird did not play a unit in the first turn and was way behind. And then we saw in game 3, it was the same thing, but on the other side, LightsaberLarry did not have a first turn play, and as a result, just fell way too far behind. Game 2 was incredibly close. I think that was just a testament to Tbird's sideboard. The vigilance is what was, I think, the linchpin in that matchup. But if you are watching at home and you're new to the game and you're saying, hey, what's a simple, easy, top of the mind deck building tip? Make sure you have stuff to play on the first turn, because even if you have a lot of things like Sabine, there are games where you don't get it, and it's monumentally important. So, shout out to Tbird. You again are our first ever repeat conqueror. I'm sorry, LightsaberLarry, I picked you and thus Caster cursed you. And I'm sorry for everyone else in the future, because I'm going to keep picking favorites and you're probably going to lose, and it's my fault.
So you can blame Charmer just every time something negative happens to you in Star Wars Unlimited. You can be playing at your local and draw poorly and you'd be like, Charmer! He's out there cursing your games. That's right. It's good to know. We learned a lot on this episode, I feel like. And we also had a ton of fun, too. I love casting these. Big shout out to LightsaberLarry for coming in, being a pretty challenging challenger, a pretty aggressive challenger with the Sabine ECL list. Certainly giving Tbird a little bit of a run for their money in game 1 and 2, but ultimately Tbird takes the crown once more, conquers the cave again, gets to stay in the cave. He's putting up new drapes, he's changing the carpet, he's making it his own, but can he hold on to it? We'll find out next time on Conquer the Cave.